All right. So to the committee, to Chairs Needleman and Stein, to ranking members Fazio and Mara, and to the members of the committee otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of Senate Bill 647. I've provided a lengthy bit of written testimony going deep into energy policy with a few dozen source citations, which I'm happy to answer to for those that took the time to read it. But today I'll just speak to the heart of why we're all here. Electric rates are way too high, and it's a matter of policy and policy alone. It's not that we live in New England, as, for example, New Hampshire, a state famously colder and much more sparsely populated than Connecticut, has historically taken a completely different approach on energy policy and has much lower rates. We're more than 30% higher than them on average, and comparing rates already accounts for the difference in how New Hampshire residents heat their homes. And they're not even the lowest rates in New England. Wallingford, the most deregulated distributor, is half our rates. Happy to address that in questioning. Everyone in here has seen it play out too. I live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment, and my last electric bill was over $500. Yes, I have electric baseboard heat, which is the most expensive way to heat a home. What am I supposed to do? Tell my landlord to spend $1 kajillion in capital she doesn't have, and which will just come out of my rent anyways? Force other ratepayers to pay for it, which saves those ratepayers money how? Robbing Peter to pay Paul? My bedroom is already set to 60 degrees. My living room is set to 50. Under just the wrong conditions, you can see your breath in my living room. So I just don't use it in the winter. A whole room in my less than 800 square foot apartment gone. I've gone to the length of hanging sheets of construction plastic to bifurcate my apartment so I can keep my kitchen at a tolerable temperature. There is no part of my day inside my apartment when I'm not seriously layered up. I keep just one desk lamp on in my bedroom when I'm using it, and only one light on in any given room. So I'm sorry if it falls on deaf ears when we're constantly told, just put solar panels on your roof, or just get a heat pump, an air circulator by another name, or when we get green initiatives like offshore wind dumped on us because we're not doing enough to fight climate change. I'm sorry, but who is we? Who is the public that is benefiting from any of the public benefits charges? I know that the public benefits charges aren't the only thing on our bills that keeps us above every other state in the continental U.S. except California, but that's why Senate Bill 647 is a 6-point plan, whose individual parts I'm happy to answer to, and is why I'm here to speak in favor of it, as it addresses a number of major policy issues driving up rates. We shouldn't have to live like we're homeless in our homes. I hope you'll support Senate Bill 647. Thank you. Happy to answer questions. And I do have some August bills and some December bills to put to bed some of the statements that have been made about the difference in how electricity is consumed in the summer and the winter. Happy to take your questions.
Really, thank you. Representative Buckby, I see you have your hand raised. And one other thing, Ashen Harper, we're going to come back to you as soon as we're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have to recognize when someone from New Milford steps on, and I've been on here all day with all of you. And Mike, thank you for reaching out from the best town in the USA. Couple things to point out. One, I appreciate we had a couple people, or actually I think there was one earlier that I saw that talked about small apartment and his efforts and his fight. And you're talking about yours, and I appreciate that because that's something we've touched base on a few times with small apartments. But you touch base too on Wallingford, and I'm interested because they don't pay into the public benefits charge, and how your comment to that, how that would be beneficial to. I mean, it's tough. You can't really model what they do. It'd be impossible to build all these plants all over the state.
Okay, so what Wallingford is a municipal. It's a de facto municipal EDC, but because they're technically labeled as an EDC, they avoid a ton of the regulation that EDCs run into. And I'm not saying this just because that's what I've heard. I'm saying this because the fellow that led heads the co-op that handles all of this with those several towns that have the municipal distribution companies said so on WFSB, that the reason that their rates are so much lower than everyone else is because they're able to avoid a lot of this regulation.
Absolutely. And I think it makes it difficult for the overall program. If that's the intent of the state to face this entire program, then that's, we're kind of missing out on the communities like Wallingford that aren't committing to everyone in that. And you have graphics for us? What? Yep.
So
graphics?
Yeah. Just just some electric rates across the country. I have all kinds of other sources too that I can easily pull
You
up.
always do, and you're well read in this environment. As Senator Fazio found out this week, you're very well read in the environment of energy, and I appreciate you taking the time and waiting around all day. Just I see you have a couple lights on the back. Considering what you're doing, you might want to kill a couple of those. But Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. I know it's been a long day for all of you there. It's been a long day for me here as well. I've been with you the whole day, but Mike, really appreciate your testimony. I read your written testimony, and you did very well here. So thank you for that.
Thanks for taking the time to read the written testimony.
Thank you, Representative Buckby, speaking as the first selectman of the best town in America, small but town. We'll pat you on the back and say you're up there, but not quite.
It's adorable, Essex. You fit
Senator
my
Fazio,
mark.
We are adorable.
Speaking as a resident of a town without an inferiority complex, Mike, I wanted to. We have a great population, and but I wanted to thank you, Mike, for your testimony. I read through your written testimony today. It's not often we get testimony from the public with 28 footnotes from scientific journals and various studies. It's actually a really good read for legislators and members of the public and journalists. There's a statistic I wasn't aware of that you referenced there that Connecticut is fourth in the country for the percentage of its residents who kept their homes at unsafe temperatures because of high energy rates. That, in addition to high rates, is a very bad outcome. You spoke in, you mentioned in your testimony your support for including all hydropower and nuclear power in the renewable portfolio standard. You didn't mention it in your verbal testimony, so I wanted to just give you an opportunity to discuss why you think that.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening is, and I can pull up the legislation. Right now, Class 1 renewables exclude run-of-the-river are only allow for run-of-the-river hydroelectric. So it already allows for certain types of hydroelectric, just not the ones that we actually have here in Connecticut. So, for example, the Stevenson Dam, the Chippewa River Dam, and the Rocky River State Power Station, which is effectively it's a hydroelectric dam. It's hydroelectric generation by another name. All of them are disqualified from Class 1. And however, all of them are qualified for Class 1 renewables as part of the renewable portfolio standards for states like Maine. So we're kind of something of an exception by not allowing the hydroelectric we already have to be Class 1. And let me pull up. Well, I can pull that up in just a minute here. But the long and short of it is all that the bill basically is doing is removing those qualifiers, and the biggest one is run of the river, which I guess I can get into the esoterics of what constitutes run of the river. But the long and short of it is I don't think any of our dams actually qualify, and the supermajority at least don't qualify already. So wouldn't it be nice to use the hydroelectric generation that's already happening in our state as a Class 1 renewable?
Thank you for that, Mike. Zero carbon is hydro, and keeping these megawatts online is important as there's concerns about retirement. Again, I highly recommend people read your testimony. It's not that long, even though it does have 28 footnotes full of interesting facts, and appreciate your time here today.
Thank you.